Welcome to Get Elite Bookings. I will start the live very soon. Please bear with me for a little moment. Finalizing the couple of setup at the moment. Okay, let's rock and roll. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are April 14. As you know, if you are in Thailand, happy Songkran, pre-big holiday and Thai New Year. So today I will do a little bit of a special show. Your most profitable month is also your worst. What it means by that? If you have a villa, if you are a property owner, most of the time your most profitable months, the months where you get the most money and the less cost, is usually the low season one. The months where you get the lowest occupancy. So what does it mean? It means that during the real season, during the high season and peak season, you get a lot of bookings, you get a lot of cash. We all agree about that. Most of owners are doing 50 to 70% of their yearly revenue during this period. But here is the catch. You have a lot of revenue, but in the same time, you have a lot of charges. We all know the salary. We all know the different issues that comes with having over time for your staff. You have increased wear and tear. You have increased expenses as well for different things. If you have transfer for your customers and so on and so forth. So your most profitable months, we agree, is most of the time the months where you have the less occupancy because you need less staff and you have less charges. And this creates some sort of dilemma because most owners do still push for higher revenue without looking at exactly how much it costs. If you are in a low season, period, you try to reduce as much your charges, but you try as well to reduce as much your marketing. You reduce everything. You reduce the income, but you reduce the charges. So at the end of the day, even though you get some profitability, you get less money. During the peak season is the opposite. You get a lot of bookings, a lot of commissions, and this is what happens is most of the time, if you compare your low season in your high season in terms of profitability, well, you get more profitable in the low season. And this is where most owners have to learn. And trust me, I talk about a lot of property owners. Most of the time, the ones that are on Airbnb, not the ones that are really pushing hard on Booking.com or Expedia or other platforms that require a bit more organization. They really focus on peak season because they focus on the big numbers. But on the other side, you have all these charges, all these different things that you need to pay for, that you need to account. And trust me, in the ownership, most of the time, this is where nothing is done. Most of the owners have no clue about how much one room per night costs them. What's the charges? How much they have to pay in order for them to accommodate a customer in their property, in their villa, their condo, or even their boutique resort, you name it. And this is where the problem occurs because they focus everything on the bid revenue, but they don't know the cost. At the opposite, when they arrive in the low season, they focus everything on saving costs without increasing the top line. So it's a very strange game that you have at the end. And where lies the solution in all of this? The first thing is you have to build a cost to revenue ratio. You have to understand what we call your ratio. How much percent of my revenue is going to cover the cost of the property? And you will be surprised that in the low season, in your worst months, this ratio is actually better because you get less staff, less wear and tear, and you can optimize way better. But most of the property owners have no way to really understand what is going on. They have really no way to understand what the property is generating in terms of cost and expenses during low season. So it's very hard for them to be satisfied all the time with a number. You reach the peak season, you get a lot of money, but when you reach the end of the month, you figure out you don't get enough because you were actually making a mistake between being very profitable and actually having revenue. It's two completely things. The different things, sorry. The revenue is when actually you get something, and the profit is when actually you get something after paying everything. And this is where the first mistake occurs. So you have to constantly follow up with your cost ratio. This is super important during peak season and during low season, and especially during peak season, because you will pay on marketing, people, overtime. Clients are here, money is flowing, everyone is happy, but at the end of the day, when come the end of the peak season and you make the calculation, you figure out that you didn't get so much money. The second problem is that you have to identify the top 3 variable costs. A variable cost is a cost that change all the time, depend on your occupancy. So if you have high occupancy most of the time, and I can tell you is staff, consumption, like for example water, electric and stuff like this, and all the stuff that you put inside the villa. So for example, you have like what we call consumables, toilet paper, soap and everything. Usually this is the 3 most variable costs. But in the same time, if we remove the staff, this is actually the 3 costs that are not so much follow up on a day-to-day basis. If you go to big resort and big hotels, you can see that they follow that on a day-to-day basis. How much is the payroll? How much is the overtime? How much is the consumption? Because they want to really understand that the business is as profitable in peak season as it is in low season. Because most of the time, this big resort, they report to a board of ownership, and this guy are only focusing on this very specific point. So do you. If you have a business, it's like villa rental is like a small business, you need to be on top of this. And don't think like, oh, I'm stingy, I'm too close to my money, because trust me, I hear that so much from many property owners. That's not true. You are fine-tuning and managing very accurately your business by following your cost on a day-to-day, or if you can't, on a week-to-week basis. And it's not only money in, money out, is which cost can you fine-tune. I speak about, for example, if you have a laundry, the laundry cost, the staff, how to optimize your staff, multitasking most of the time, but you have other things that will help you to get a very good cost base, very properly managed cost base during the peak season and in the low season, and you will see that your profitability will increase, trust me. And lastly, you have to review your peak season of the previous years. So I understand if your property is new, of course it's complicated, but if your property is more than a year old, basically if you went already in a season, or to say a peak season or a low season, you have to review this peak season, this previous peak season, and see how much did you pay. How much did you pay in staff, in utilities, in accommodation, in variable cost, and then see how much you can improve this season. That's super important. Why? Because you need to be able to save on this or improve. You will see, for example, that season to season, your utilities cost will vary based on the number of clients. So for example, if in a peak season you get 500 clients in your business, you will see that the amount of water and electric used per client will somehow go up or go down. And it's always very interesting because it's most of the time about the education that's been done at home by the nationality. So for example, you will see that Europeans, because at the moment there is so many things that are done about climate change and saving energy and everything, are way more cost efficient than other nationality where there is not such an education. And it's the same for everything. And your objective is always to compare where you are this year with what happened last year, not only for your revenue, but as well for your cost, because this is the way you optimize your villa. You know your cost more in depth, and you always understand that you can make it better. There is another thing as well that is always super important, is to get that not all the costs can be improved. Some costs are, well, the way they are. No matter how much customer you get, or no matter what you do, you will still have a cost incurred. You can reduce a cost to a certain level where if you continue to reduce it, it will impact your quality of service, it will impact the quality of your villa. I mean by that the staff. If you reduce your staff to a certain level, you cannot pretend to be a luxury property or a villa with a service 24/7 or something like this. So this is one very simple example, but there is so many things about the pool, the electricity, the lighting at night and stuff like this, where most owners try to cut costs, but the problem is that it's not compressible. You cannot compress this cost any longer. It has to stay at a certain level in order for you to guarantee your quality. So to sum up, because I'm already live for 11 minutes, my target is to stay always at 15 minutes. At the moment, so when you have a low month in the villa, it's most of the time more profitable than a high month, a peak month. Why? Because you have perhaps less revenue, but you have less cost. The cost usually it's your staff and all the things that are related to the life of your property. So the fact that you have less clients generate less cost. But if you check at the profitability, meaning the money that stays in your pocket in relation to how much you get at the top before all the taxes and all the costs, you will figure out that your low season is always more profitable. So how to level that? How to ensure that high season and low season in terms of profit ratio, meaning the percentage of money that stay in your pocket in proportion of the revenue that you get, is always the same. So the first one is you have to build a monthly, I will call it weekly to be sincere, cost to income comparison. You have to check every week and every month how much money come in, how much things you have to pay out, and you level it so that you understand constantly what's your ratio of cost compared to your revenue. Secondly, you have to understand the top 3 costs that are variable in your property. So in this case, we have staff, consumable, which is soap, toilet paper, all this stuff that basically the client consume. And after the utilities, water and electric. This is most of the time the 3 tops that you can work on. Try to reduce, but once again, don't try to reduce it too much, because after your villa will lose in terms of quality, and that's very important. The quality of your property will decrease if you reduce too much some of the costs. So you have to understand that some costs cannot be reduced over a certain extent. And finally, review your peak season operation and all the previous peak season you have done. We call that a post-mortem. The post-mortem is that you review last year compared to this year, and you say, okay, I can increase this and that cost, I can reduce this one, because it will help you to compare. Especially water and electric is only the things that you can always try to make efficient. But once again, do not try to cut it too much, because, well, the quality of your property will go down, and that's unfortunate. It's not really what you want. Okay, sometimes cutting cost as a limit in the same in terms of staffing and everything. If you cut too much your staff, after a certain point your villa cannot pretend to a certain quality. So very important for you to really analyze but understand where cutting has a certain limit. So yes, that's it for today, guys. I'm at 15 minutes. If you have some questions to ask about your property, your cost and everything, please feel free to put it in the chat. I will remain here for a couple of minutes. And that's it. Just look around, because I'm streaming on several platforms, so I get questions sometimes from other platforms in the same time. Always looking around. Hello Nouri Sayang. How are you today? Thank you very much for watching the live, by the way. Always interesting. I'm live every afternoon, actually. Around this area at this time, I always change a little bit. Do we have any question at the moment? Should actually put some music. Tomorrow I will put on the streamer, I will put some music in the background, so it's always more cool. Asil, nice to meet you, Asil. Where are you from, Asil? So yeah. Okay. So if there is no more question at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, I will do a wrap for today. Asil, I don't know if you have some question, you can go to my website getelitebookings.com. You can as well request on the top your villa for a free audit. And yeah, I thank you so much for your time today, and I see you tomorrow, same time. See you around.